isn't how I originally thought this would go, but what a day for a revolution, isn't it? I'm with the 99%, 99% rebellion. These are the 99% demands. First, there are 3 sets. First one being women's rights, second set being workers' rights, third set being human rights. Allow me to read. First set of women's rights, guaranteed protection and upholding of reproductive freedom. We defy the Supreme Court. We defy the abortion bans and demand that reproductive freedoms be protected under the Constitution added to the Bill of Rights. It will be illegal to deny, oppress, withhold, or control a person's inalienable right to determine their own reproductive choices and personhood, as defined as the inalienable right for a person to live their lives according to their paths, their choice of employment, their choice of spouse, their choice of marriage, their choice of religion or none, their sexuality and gender identity, their choice of consenting sexual activities with another consenting adult, their choice of health care, their choice of parenthood or not. Their inalienable right to choose cannot be impeded, stopped, discriminated against, or prevented from following, except in the case of violence or obvious endangerment to the public and others. Also, eliminate the pink tax. Any item targeted at women must cost only as much as the same item targeted for men. Feminine hygiene items should be affordable, if not free. Eliminate the glass ceiling pay gap in workplaces. If you have the same work, you get the same pay. Unable to discriminate on the basis of biology, gender expression, sexual orientation, sex, etc. Access to abortions, all form of birth control, male and female specific health issues must be FDA approved and covered under health insurance, which will be universal. Guaranteed protection, upholding of bodily autonomy, as well as gender affirming care for LGBTQ plus people. For transitioning, operations, hormones, etc. must be FDA approved and covered under health insurance, which would be universal. Second set, which is workers' rights. A $25 minimum wage nationwide, adjusted to living wage, adjusted to inflation, a 4-day work week, a 3-day weekend, do away with hourly wages, move to salary. This would make overtime optional. Wages would depend on the salary position. And if you're wondering how all these would work with corporations, this would work by teamwork. 2 or 3 teams from a workplace of mega corporations, but mom and pop operations are understandably smaller. This will have to be worked out. But first, Team A will take the first 4 days, Team B will take the next 4 days. Team C will meet as a combination of half Team A and B for the overlapping day. The week after, the next Team C will be the workers from the 2 teams from the previous week. Teams will rotate between Teams A and B. Employees can request which team shift they want to be assigned. In the case of missing or sick employees, unscheduled employees may volunteer but cannot be forced by the employer to cover the missing shift. In that case, have the employees move as flex members, use teamwork and flex around and assist when needed. Everything will get done or finished the next day. Guaranteed sick time off. It doesn't tap into vacation time unless specifically requested by an employee. With universal health care, get your medical issues solved and signed off by a doctor before returning to work. Guaranteed vacation time. 7 days minimum per 3 months. No rollover, but refill every 3 calendar months. Excuse me. Unions. No matter where you work or whatever industry, workers have the right to unionize. Accessibility to special needs resources and disability accommodations. Sex workers' profession legalized, protected, and insured. Cannot face legal or personal discrimination, have as protected legitimate business as entrepreneurs in healthcare. Required sensitivity training for both employers and employees. Staff and management required to be minimum 50% women. Accommodations for elderly and disabled workers. And legal protections put in place to further protect marginalized groups from discrimination and abuse, etc. And create a Department of Family, or DOF, a government agency that will have free and accessible child care and daycare centers. We will put CPS under this branch, direct federally constructed program and subsidies, make sure the workers are actually compassionate about child care, and don't let them abuse government positions. Every city or town must have at least 3 child care centers. These child care centers should include ABA services for autism spectrum, developmental conditions, and other special needs, library services, a food pantry to feed the children at the center, plus a pantry for the neighborhood to pick up and donate food. For every worker/nanny, maximum of 3 kids to supervise. They would have a 4-hour shift minimum, 8-hour maximum, and after that, they would switch off their duties to another caregiver. They would offer preschool and after-school activities, sports, pediatric health care, but with no emergency care. Emergency care would be taken care of by the hospitals. There would be pediatric nurses on site, social workers on site, behavior technicians, nannies, family therapists, and child psychologists, therapists, and social workers, etc. And they would also have accessible materials for LGBTQ+ youth, minorities, and underserved communities. We demand paid leave for new parents. It covers all 9 months of a pregnancy, as well as 4 additional months for recovery, and adjusting for parents for the baby and babies, covered for the Department of Family. Third set, human rights. Universal income, approximately $500 per week per person, regardless of employment or not. Can you pause? Universal health care. No matter what clinic or hospital you walk into the United States, you will receive medical care 100% free. This would include mental health and addiction, therapy, bodily health, gender-specific health, addiction, etc. Free universal college and university. If you want to be a doctor, nurse, engineer, etc., you should be taught for the trade and go and benefit society. Universal/available internet in the entire country. Baseline free internet, wireless data, and broadband accessible to everyone, including remote and underserved regions. Homeless epidemic. Demand universal housing for all. Free housing for everyone. Construction contracting companies would receive subsidies for helping build. $20 billion approximately would be needed to create housing for homelessness. It will reduce crime, look better, and they will receive health care, reduce addiction, and fit for small housing neighborhoods. Also for the homeless epidemic, you could turn abandoned houses and buildings to be fixed and given to the individuals for free of charge. Nonprofit organizations aiding the homeless will be given funds and resources, subsidies to use. This will not include organizations that have histories of abuse, discrimination, etc., such as the Salvation Army. Have the FBI investigate whether the orgs are being ethical and humane. Clothes, hygiene materials, school supplies, materials, etc. will be given free of charge, no strings attached. And pause. Disability accessibility. Blind, deaf, special needs accommodations everywhere. Office buildings, schools, apartments, housing, government buildings everywhere. We also demand that you eliminate and delete student loan debt and medical bill debt. Abolish the practice of garbage feeding as a means of appeal for any livestock/food consumption. Independent news source reporting on specific regions, companies, instead of targeting the main news. Focus on turning to renewable energy and resources. Help those who are already being negatively affected by climate change and global warming. This will cover relief for those who have been affected by natural disasters such as floods, tornadoes, hurricanes, etc. Establish accessible recycling centers, require large corporations to recycle, etc. Recycling for electric batteries, nuclear power, etc. Fix existing aging infrastructure. This includes the Flint, Michigan pipes with clean water and to stop corporate illegal waste dumping, poisoning our water, and reduce emissions. Accountability to corporations regardless if they operate on American soil or overseas. Relief and reparations for those affected by war, governmental overthrows, slavery, genocide, etc. This includes reparations for Indigenous Americans, African Americans, etc. This will involve, but not limited to, returning sacred land sites, accommodations given to practice cultural traditions, restore languages, etc., and funds given to further the research and restoration of these cultures, histories, religions of these groups, protections to keep their children connected with their families and cultures, etc. This is not a police issue, this is a human rights issue. Also resources for those affected by abuse. Create a plan and provide resources to deal with current and future pandemics. Resources and protections for children in adoption and foster care agencies covered under the Department of Family, DOF. This includes background checks on those looking to adopt or foster, background checks on those who wish to work for an adoption or foster care agency, Also have funds put away in the child's name. Only they can use it unless they give consent, which would be recognized when they're about age 12 to 13, and they have been given credible information about what it would mean to give access to their funds and who can use it. Safe and healthy living conditions for these children. School supplies must be provided for every child at an affordable cost, if not free. School books must be up to date and accurate. No materials that treat religious stories as true history or justify, whitewash, past discrimination, and atrocities. All religions will be given equal protection under the law, but no religion will be treated as law. The separation between church and state must be reinforced. Public roads, buildings, parks, schools, etc. should be provided by the government and remodeled every 3 years. Good internet access should be provided for all citizens. And also defund the police. They don't need military-styled weapons to do their jobs. Sensitivity training should be required for each officer. They need to learn how to de-escalate situations and not jump to violence. This would include background checks, having the reforms become more humanitarian, protect and serve, de-escalate for mental health, and not immediately pulling a gun. This would include also psychotherapists and specialized officers to handle these situations on board staff to de-escalate mentally ill people instead of sending in the police with guns. And finally, violence being the absolute last option. Abolish ICE in all immigration detention centers. Release all ICE immigrants and give them access to legal professionals so that they may hold our government accountable for any and all abuse and discrimination they have faced. Provide funds for the thousands of children that have been taken from them. Tax the ultra-rich on income. Max out one's income at $9.99999 million. Every single dollar added after that last million before it becomes billion will be taxed and redirected into improving public sectors such as schools, infrastructure, utility services, roads, hospitals, libraries, farmers, etc. This applies to private citizens but also corporations such as Amazon and Walmart. This is emphasized as total income, which includes stock trading, crypto, bonds, etc. Provide aid for those escaping cults, hate groups, etc. Give them housing, money, clothes, etc. and witness protection programs for these folks. Have every adult 18 and older automatically registered to vote. Abolish the practice of gerrymandering. Give me a second, pause. Establish a plan that protects the private information of citizens from being used against them or spread to outside parties. Abolish the industrial prison complex. Prisoners are slaves and receive slave wages, such as $1 an hour. Jail and prison is exploitation. Religious liberty will be no longer used to deny others their rights. This includes, but is not limited to, the right to marry, the right to adopt foster children, reproductive rights, the right to work, etc. Religious groups and organizations with histories of abuse and discrimination will be required to make amends to the individuals they have hurt through reparations, public acknowledgement, etc. Religious liberty will no longer be used as a tool to hinder/deny the teaching of accurate science and history of children to others. Religion can no longer be used as a defense when it puts others in dangerous or neglectful situations. Examples being denying children access to life-saving vaccines and medicines, and allowing untrained adults and children to handle dangerous animals such as venomous snakes. And last but not least, eliminate conversion therapy. This was the 99%. These are our demands, and we wish to change America.